Welcome back to Uncut Truth. We often talk about the brutal things humans do for power, but what about the horrifying things they do for belief? Cults are not just groups of people with unusual ideas. They are social experiments built on manipulation, paranoia, and absolute loyalty to a single, often psychotic, leader. Today we're diving into the disturbing realities of groups who believed the end was nigh, or that their leader was literally God. You've been warned. Number 1, People's Temple, the Kool-Aid Complex. We start with the People's Temple and its charismatic, deeply paranoid leader Jim Jones. Jones wasn't just preaching. He was building a socialist utopia in the jungles of Guyana called Jonestown. Jones forced nearly 1,000 followers to move there, isolating them completely from the outside world. The utopian dream quickly became a totalitarian nightmare, filled with mandatory public beatings and white nights, mock mass suicide drills. When a U.S. congressman visited to investigate the abuses, Jones knew the game was up. He ordered a mass suicide, famously using a cyanide-laced grape drink. Over 900 people died, including over 300 children. It was the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act until 9/11. It wasn't just suicide, it was mass murder engineered by one man's delusion. It remains the chilling blueprint for the worst-case scenario in cult psychology. Number 2, Heaven's Gate, the Comet and the Sneakers. Next is Heaven's Gate, led by Marshall Applewhite, who claimed he was the reincarnation of Jesus. Their belief system was simple. They were aliens sent to Earth, and a spaceship was hiding behind the Hale-Bopp comet, waiting to take them home. To prepare for the ride, members had to shed all earthly attachments, including their families, possessions, and crucially their sexuality. The male members even underwent voluntary castration to become true aliens. In 1997, as the Hale-Bopp comet neared Earth, 39 members committed mass suicide, believing their souls would transfer to the ship. They were found dressed identically in black shirts, sweatpants, and brand new Nike shoes, with armbands reading Heaven's Gate Away Team. It's a tragedy of extreme delusion. Their suicide was meticulously planned as a logistical operation, the ultimate example of a cult treating death like a glorified one-way field trip. Number 3, Aum Shinrikyo, the Tokyo gas attack. Let's move to Japan for Aum Shinrikyo, led by Shoko Asahara. This group wasn't content with just mass suicide. They wanted to bring about the Armageddon themselves and take the world out with them. Asahara convinced his thousands of highly educated followers that he was Christ and Buddha reborn. Their goal was to overthrow the Japanese government and then the world. To do this, they began stockpiling weapons, including chemical and biological agents. Their most terrifying act came in 1995 when they orchestrated a coordinated sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway system during rush hour. The deadly nerve agent killed 13 people and injured thousands, causing utter chaos and global panic. This was one of the first non-state terrorist acts using a WMD. It proves that when cultic delusion meets scientific knowledge and extreme resources, the results can be catastrophic, global, and absolutely chilling. Number 4, the Manson Family, Helter Skelter. We can't talk about terrifying cults without mentioning the Manson family. Charles Manson, a frustrated musician and career criminal, used drugs, charisma, and apocalyptic race war theories to control a commune of mostly young women. Manson believed a race war was coming, which he called Helter Skelter, borrowing the phrase from a Beatles song. He believed that by committing a series of brutal, highly visible murders, he could kickstart the war and emerge to rule the surviving world. In 1969, he sent his followers to commit a string of horrifying murders, including the brutal killing of actress Sharon Tate. The followers scrawled messages in blood at the crime scenes. It was less about belief and more about performance art for a madman. The Manson family wasn't about religion. It was about absolute control and psychological collapse. It showed how easily young people searching for belonging could be turned into remorseless killers by sheer toxic manipulation. Number 5. Finally, let's visit the Order of the Solar Temple, led by Luc Jouret and Joseph D. Mombro. They mixed environmentalism, New Age philosophy, and the Knights Templar into one chaotic, lethal cocktail. The leaders taught that their followers were spiritual elites who needed to leave this corrupt world for a better planet orbiting the star Sirius. Their plan: mass ritual murder and suicide. In a series of horrifying coordinated events in 1994, 1995, and 1997, over 70 members, including several children, died in ritualistic murder-suicides in Switzerland and Canada. Many victims were drugged, shot, or stabbed before the buildings were set on fire. The Order of the Solar Temple showed the disturbing power of a doomsday cult. They believed the world was ending, so they decided to make their own theatrical exit. It was a terrifying, fiery confirmation of absolute, fatal delusion. Number 6, the Anthill Kids, the leader who played God. We now head to Canada for one of the most sickening modern examples, the Anthill Kids, led by Roche Thériault. Thériault proclaimed himself the second Christ, and his followers believed his word was the literal gospel. Thériault used brutal psychological and physical abuse to keep his small group of mostly women and children completely submissive. The punishments were medieval in their cruelty, involving torture, mutilation, and even surgeries performed by Thériault himself, often under the guise of religious rites. He convinced them that suffering was the path to salvation. One woman had her arm amputated by Thériault, another was disemboweled. This was a place where absolute psychological control translated directly into physical horror. The Anthill Kids prove that the scariest cults don't need thousands of members or a major prophecy. All they need is one powerful psychopath and total isolation to create a private house of horrors. Number 7, the movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. Apocalypse failure. This one is a heartbreaking story from Uganda. The cult was led by 3 discredited former Catholics who preached absolute adherence to the 10 Commandments and the imminent end of the world. The leaders predicted the apocalypse would occur on December 31st, 1999. Their followers were told to sell all their belongings and give the money to the leaders to prepare for the Great Escape. When the world didn't end, the leaders faced a serious problem. The leaders simply set a new date, March 17th, 2000. On that day, over 778 members, including many children, gathered in a church which was then sealed shut and deliberately set on fire. The victims had been convinced they were going straight to heaven. This chilling event was mass murder masquerading as religious ritual. It highlights the devastating cost when absolute faith meets desperate failed prophecy. They preached salvation, but delivered mass death. Number 8, the family, the children of the family. Headquartered in Australia, the family was led by the secretive and stylish Anne Hamilton Byrne. She claimed to be a reincarnation of Jesus Christ and gathered children, many illegally adopted, who were then raised in isolation. All children were forced to have their hair bleached blonde and were dressed identically. They were subjected to starvation, beatings, and psychological torture, sometimes involving mandatory doses of LSD and other drugs administered by Byrne. Byrne believed she was gathering a master race of children to repopulate the world after an apocalypse. This was less about spiritual enlightenment and more about controlling and abusing a captive, vulnerable population. This cult is a tragic case study in generational abuse. The children were completely cut off from the real world, leaving them with no frame of reference for normal life. The crimes were hidden for years under the guise of an elite, eccentric family. Number 9, Nation of Yahweh, the Black Messiah, founded by Hulon Mitchell Jr., who renamed himself Yahweh ben Yahweh, meaning God, Son of God. This cult started as a religious movement but quickly spiraled into a dangerous, violent enterprise. While preaching a message of black liberation, Yahweh demanded absolute obedience and millions in donations from his thousands of followers. Those who questioned him faced brutal retaliation. The group was eventually tied to several murders, including ritualistic killings and fire bombings. Yahweh even allegedly demanded that his followers bring him the ears of their victims as proof of their loyalty. This cult proves how quickly charismatic leadership and a message of spiritual renewal can devolve into a criminal, violent enterprise driven purely by greed and sadism. Number 10, the Nine. We end with a very strange, lesser-known case, the Nine. This Australian cult had a simple mission: protect their leader, a mentally ill man named David, whom they believed was God. The 9 followers, mostly women, believed David was responsible for literally keeping the sun shining. When David needed something or demanded violence, the followers would obey without question to keep the universe running. The cult ended in tragedy when a disagreement over a child resulted in a violent confrontation. Believing David was under threat, the followers brutally murdered one of their own and her 4 young children in a horrific act of cosmic protection. This cult is a chilling example of folie à deux, shared madness, taken to the extreme. The followers' devotion to David's delusions was so complete, they were willing to commit the most unspeakable crimes to protect what they saw as the literal pillar of the universe.